Hello there! We are making a medieval base defense game called Thronefall. We're a small team of 2 and we've been working on this game for almost 3 years now. I documented the entire process from the humble beginnings to the first playtests to the early access launch of the game. We've been very busy since the last devlog. We've published tons and tons of free updates on Steam. The moment you see this video, 1.0 is officially released on Steam and also on the Nintendo Switch. Surprise! And that means this project is done. It was a long freaking journey. It was not always an easy journey. Now I'm just eternally grateful and I can't wait to catch you up on everything that happened. For one, I accidentally wiped my hard drive. I lost a bunch of the footage I recorded. I used to keep track for which day of development we're on. I have to admit I completely lost track now. I'm super sorry. But on the bright side, I think it's just a sign to switch up the devlog formula a bit again. So we'll go back to the roots a little bit. I've logged an entire week of development for you. We're starting the journey for this specific devlog all the way back in January 2024. At the very beginning of this year, about 9 months ago, we started making a new level for Thronefall. Actually, players did not respond too well to the last level we made, Wind. And the main criticism was that it didn't really feel cool from a fantasy perspective. That was a mistake I did not want to repeat, so this time we're building an absolute fortress that just feels cool and epic to defend. As we're a super tiny team, we have to go very fast for pretty much anything we do. That's why we create all of our levels with 90% asset bashing. That means we just have a couple of simple shapes and we just clutter them everywhere. It works surprisingly well, and as you can see, it's very, very fast. This is how my first draft looked like. Paul reworked it a bit, and now it looks very, very cool. One problem Thronefall always had is spawn camping, where you just place your entire army in front of the spawn and just crush everything immediately that's coming out of it. I think I finally found a pretty big brain answer to this, and that is the new shrine building I introduced in this level. It charges when units in its very close proximity die, and then it gives massive advantages once fully charged. It's not only a very powerful defense tool that shoots at enemies, it also gives passive income. So now you're actively encouraged to fight all over the map to activate all of your shrines. We added a second new building, the Royal Forge, that allows you to purchase upgrades for your character. There are also new enemies, including a boss fight at the end. We published this new map at the beginning of February, and except for a couple of minor details, it was very well received. Before moving on to more content, we also wanted to address some of the deeper gameplay issues in the game. The defense towers, which are your bread and butter in every level, were still quite boring back then. You only had 4 different choices for the final upgrade of the tower. We reworked this by giving you upgrade choices for both level 2 and level 3 and allowing you to mix and match them however you please. So instead of 4, there are now 16 tower types you can build into. We published this as the big tower rework in the middle of March. It was super well received. The update came with a bunch of other stuff like a rework to Eternal Trials, additional unit control hotkeys, and a bunch of other quality of life improvements. Just 1 month later, in April, we published the next update, which introduced a bunch of mini game modes to the game. These were essentially using the same maps that we've already built, but with different waves of enemies and different special rules that apply to every level. For example, there's one called Throneball, where you defend your castle as a giant snowball. I know devlogs have a tendency to make things look much easier than they actually were. I can promise you, the next level I made for Thronefall did not come to me easily at all. I started getting desperate, so I tried out new workflows. I tried out building the level in Blender instead of in Unity. I had this vision for a jungle level with lots and lots of rivers running through it, but I very, very much struggled to find the correct angle for designing a level like this. Sometimes if you can't build a big thing, then start with building a small thing. That's what I did. I started out with a very tiny island and was just like, okay, let's just start with this very tiny space here. This finally unblocked my creative barrier and things started flowing from there. The idea for the layout was to give you a very well protected main base with only one very small entrance. But as you want to grow your economy, you're forced to slowly expand further and further out into the map. This gives you a lot of options for where you want to defend your base. The bigger you build it, the more places you have to defend at once. So despite my initial struggles, it turned out to be one of the best layouts in the game. There's a pretty big tail of work that we have to go through for every new level. For example, designing new enemies. We also made a new building, the first of its kind, because this one has 6 different upgrades to choose from. Then of course a new weapon, more perks, more mutators, painstakingly tracing the outlines of the level so that the player can't go out of bounds. Then of course adding the new map to the level select screen. At this stage there's also a lot of playtesting, tweaking numbers, making sure the new content is fun. We have to update the localization, adding the new content to the Eternal Trials mode, which also requires a bunch of balancing. This specific update also came with a minimap. You can see my first horrible attempt right here in the corner. At this point, the Switch version of the game was already well on its way. We outsourced that to Warp Digital. They are a great team, we're very happy with them. For example, they also ported Choo Choo Charles, but unfortunately the Switch is just very, very limited with the performance it has. The War piece already made some great progress on performance. We did not want to screw that up. That's why the minimap had to be super duper lightweight. We really couldn't afford to spend any performance on this whatsoever. So fun fact, the minimap is the most optimized piece of code we have in the PC version of the game, as it was already specifically built with the Switch in mind. This entire update came out by the end of May. At this point, the tutorial of the game desperately needed an upgrade because we implemented so many new quality of life features and the old tutorial just didn't teach any of them properly. Obviously, the existing players are not gonna replay the tutorial, so we made an in-game tip system that teaches a lot of the new features as well. We changed how things are unlocked in the game, allowed the players to bring 5 perks into the battle instead of just 3, made a huge round of balancing changes, and Paul made the UI fully rescalable, which was necessary to meet some Steam Deck and Switch requirements. For the final release of the game, we want to come out with a bang, so we decided that we want to launch with 3 brand new levels, first of which we have a creepy dark forest level called Moorweg. The concepts for these levels have been brewing in my mind for a long time by now, so I already pretty much knew roughly what I wanted to make. We only have a very small amount of levels in the game, so one of the main goals for every new level is always to make it feel as different as possible, to make it feel fresh and new again. I was technically going against some of the things we've learned in the past about level design in Thronefall. For example, this is not an epic castle, this is a random place in the middle of a forest. However, from a fantasy perspective, I was pretty confident this would work out. On the one side, this is very much meant to feel like a hostile place, but at the same time, the windy narrow paths, the tight choke points, and all of the high ground you can use to your advantage make it feel like a surprisingly cozy place. So in a weird way, you still very much feel at home here. We don't want maps to feel generic, we want them to be memorable. So in this case, I tried to build a very memorable graveyard in the bottom corner of the map. And it's not just meant to be memorable, it also serves to foreshadow some of the enemies and especially the boss fight you'll encounter here. Ironically, the process of building a new map is very, very fast. I can pretty much do it in 2 days or so. The problem is more that there's just this massive rat tail for every new map. The polishing, the new content, the new features, the testing, the balancing. The map is built in 2 days and it still takes about a month to be fully completed. At least I finally built a tool that allows me to place the level boundaries much more efficiently. I should of course have done that a long time ago. This is a work in progress of the new ghost enemy type that can walk through walls, and I also made a new monster type enemy, the biggest enemy in the game so far, which of course immediately caused new pathfinding issues for me to fix. Wonderful, we love it. There's a new building called the Summoning Circle that allows you to choose which enemies you want to summon to earn some extra gold in the next night. The idea for the final boss fight was that it just follows the path on the ground, which leads all the way to your castle center. Maybe a little bit of a homage to classic tower defense games. It also needs a bit of spectacle, so I gave it a massive firestorm. My part of the work was done for this level, so I handed it off to Paul for audio-visual polish. He would then do another pass on the enemy models, rework the visuals of the level a bit, and add sound effects to all of the new content. Meanwhile, I was already getting started with the next level, Freifort. For this one, I live streamed the entire creation of the level on YouTube. The VODs are still available. And for the sake of this devlog, I will now simulate an impatient user skipping through the live stream. Or something like that. It's hidden behind the app. A little bit. Don't even need this around if it looks. Place to start is shapes. Usually do so that there are larger, because we don't do. Yeah, Christ, what's coming? Okay. This level in particular went through a couple more iterations, and Paul did quite a lot of work on the colors and the polishing. Also, the boss fight you can see here is something I built off stream. And just to kind of complete the arc here, the final version of the level that is in the game right now looks like this. I would also love to give you a bit of a deeper insight into how making a game like this actually feels like from a personal and emotional perspective. Well, first of all, it obviously feels much slower than watching this back on a YouTube video. It includes random chores and commuting to work. I've moved in with a girlfriend a while ago, but my office is still in my dad's house. You can learn a lot about people by having a look at the rooms they inhabit. My room really captures my current state of mind. A bit cluttered, not amazingly well taken care of. Planty make thirsty face has seen better days. I've been wanting to find a better solution for this green screen because this is not. And I couldn't even find the correct adapter for my tripod, so I'll be filming this devlog without that. Ever since I started this YouTube channel, I've just been going pretty hard, both for game dev and YouTube. As you might have noticed, YouTube has relaxed a little bit, and I'm about ready to take a little bit of a break from game dev as well, I have to be honest. But now was not the time, because we wanted to give Thronefall the ending it most definitely deserved. Now was the time to keep grinding through a variety of to-do lists, which usually involves analyzing and playing the same things over and over again, till you really can't stand looking at them anymore. Today was Monday, and first of all I finished some more work for the final boss fight of the level. It's very warm. And then finally, I had some time left over to start prototyping the final map of the entire game, Totend. I wanted it to be a really epic castle to make for a really cool showdown. I made some very good progress, so now it was time to close up shop and slowly start heading to the gym. Since I moved in with my partner, I also live with 4 guinea pigs now. They are adorable. Here we see Lina and Leo, and Lotta's peeking out of her cave in the back there. After picking up my things, I continued my journey to the martial arts gym, where I started practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been at it for 9 months, so I'm still very much a beginner, but I very much enjoy it. It feels like the player versus player version of bouldering. Very technical, very strategic, and most importantly for me, you meet a lot of great people. I don't know what it is about martial arts people, but for some reason they're always great to be around. Good energy is infectious, and I think it's important to get your daily dose somewhere. And I wasn't even quite done getting mine. The sun was still shining, and I've spent the entire day in a cave, so I jumped on the opportunity to go for a quick swim. My partner works in the social field and has to get up way earlier than I, so there are some days where we don't see each other all that much, but I'm also not vlogging any of that because this is not becoming a family vlog channel. And I'm sure I saw her a little bit. It's just, if you're wondering why I'm eating alone, that's why. And finally I closed off the day with some pointless media consumption. You can see here Totend is becoming an absolute fortress, worthy of a final level. Just like on Sturmklamm, you build on the ruins of an ancient, long-forgotten castle. There's not much lore in our game, but I think it's becoming more and more apparent that you're rebuilding a fallen kingdom back to its former glory. It's a bit of a shame that we only figured this out in our 5th level, Sturmklamm, that having traces of former civilization really makes the levels a lot more interesting. But ever since we figured that out, we've done it for every single one of our new levels, and it's always worked very well. It gives the places some history and personality, and it also makes it more believable in a way.
This is certainly starting to look like something.
I spent my evening working on a personal research/learning project where I tried to craft neural networks from scratch without training them. So essentially coding in neurons. I'm of course not the first person to ever try this, but I found it very fascinating. You will probably see a video about this on my channel at some point. While I think you can now already imagine better how my day-to-day life looks like, I still have to point out that this is one of the more interesting weeks. A lot of the time it's just coding, bug fixing. For the purpose of this devlog, I intentionally chose a week that I knew would be a little more interesting than that. First couple of enemies approaching your base is always a little bit of a celebratory moment for every new map. Here I'm working on the flyer nav mesh, so the surface, all of the flying units are gonna move on. Wednesday is call day, so first of all we had a quick call with our community manager Sasha to catch up on some community feedback.
Like each rings a bell somehow.
Are you asking, maybe?
I've seen that a million times. This goes into other feedback. Then we have another call with Brandon from Warp Digital to check in on how the Switch part is going. The rest of my day I spent on fixing some new bugs the community found. We can all very much feel that we're in the final sprint of this project now. For me, it's not just the final sprint for Thronefall. It's the final sprint of an entire chapter. Now, I'm not leaving YouTube, I'm not leaving game development, but I'm very much craving a break and a fresh start in a way. It also doesn't mean that I'm not grateful. I'm incredibly freaking grateful for everything. Like, I can't believe how well life has treated me so far. I'm sure it'll throw me a curveball soon enough, but until then, let's enjoy the ride. Chill out for a bit, maybe start a family or something, and find some new challenges to work on. I spent the evening playtesting an early build of Twisted Tower for Thomas, had a lot of great things going for it, and watched the latest AI Explained video, as I always do when they come out. Paul and I have only a 3 to 4 day work week for Thronefall, which gives us some room to work on side projects. For me, that mostly means YouTube. Alright, so this is the video I'm currently working on. You can reproduce it, and I'll give you a ton of ideas and checklists that you can apply directly to your game. At the core, you only need 4 things to make a successful. This is my setup, timeline on one side, and then the video on the other side. After 5 years of YouTube and with about 200,000 subscribers, my channel is making about 300 per month. Now that sounds great, I'll take it over nothing, but it's not a lot if you compare it to how much time I put into this. I don't want to take more sponsorships, I also don't want to make more videos either. I think the reasonable solution is to just treat YouTube like a hobby. I love doing it, but it's certainly time to stop treating it like a job and take it a bit more chill. I think doing YouTube full time is freaking stressful and it sucks a lot of the joy out of it. So let's just not do that.
Here we go again.
It's so freaking warm, I can't really focus. That Friday, last day of work effect is starting to set in maybe. It's very disheartening how slowly you make progress. I think I'm now at 8 minutes or something. That's pretty much it for one work week, and the devlog continues. For the days and weeks that followed, there were only tons of small tasks left, but as we all know, small tasks have a tendency to really add up. Localization, balancing, polishing. Here I'm working on a new enemy type for the final level, the Fire Snail, which reminds me my last game, You Snail, just received a massive update. The level editor has tons of new features and we made a little bonus campaign to show some of them off. Big thank you to the wonderful people in the Snail team for making this happen. Woo! Didn't have to do much for Slices of Infinity. The team carried me through that one, but I'm still starting to get the feeling I might be juggling a couple too many projects at once. But whatever, luxury problems. For the final boss fight of Thronefall, I wanted to have this epic dragon pulled from the asset store, but I couldn't figure out how to get the animations working fast enough. So instead I made a dragon at home. This is the dragon at home. And instead of breathing fire, it just pukes all over your buildings. Awesome. It's very difficult to describe how finishing such a massive project feels like.
It's kind of a mix, like, between very exhausted and very excited.
I'm already feeling nostalgic while still actively working on the game. You never quite know if you'll ever be able to capture lightning in a bottle again.
I think the first lowlight was definitely before we actually started working on Thronefall in its final form. The end of our prototyping phase where we just felt very exhausted already.
Yeah, we did feel a bit insecure at the time. Like, can we pull this off again? Was this a fluke?
Yeah, actually, like, this whole card game decision, it's just so interesting in hindsight. But well, that was certainly one of the lowlights for me.
For those of you who don't remember, Thronefall almost would have ended up being a turn-based card game. It was pretty horrible, but for some reason we were in tunnel vision and didn't realize. After lots of time wasted, we started from scratch and Paul eventually came up with this prototype here.
It immediately had a very strong, good vibe for me. Like, just from the get-go felt like something very solid.
And look where we're now. It's been such a long journey. It definitely had its ups and its downs. We learned so many new things about making video games. I have a lot of newfound confidence in my abilities and I can't wait to apply them to new projects.
I had the same thought yesterday, and I think I was telling my partner about it. Like, maybe that's the biggest highlight of them all, like how much we learned about making games again. And how much there still is to learn. It's so interesting because we did a couple of games that did well before, and sometimes we get to a point where you feel like, yeah, I kind of, maybe I understood how to make good games, and then just a new project happens and you realize how limited your understanding and knowledge about creating games is and how much there is still to learn. So I think that's the most fun part of all.
While you see the final making of clips from this Devlog series in front of your eyeballs, I want to take the opportunity to really wholeheartedly just say thank you. Thank you to everybody who supported the game with your wallet, by finding bugs, by providing feedback. And of course also thank you for supporting the Devlog series here on YouTube. Just you watching is already enough. It's more than I could possibly ask for. Thank you very much. The game is out now on Steam and the Switch. Give it a spin if you want to. No worries, there'll be a few more updates. We'll be fixing bugs and so on. Other than that, we're very excited to move on to new adventures now. Maybe the best final words I can find are: see you for the next adventure.